I think my experience of working with psychologists in sport was, first of all, quite an eye-opener, because I've always been a natural sports person and always had that determination to win, you know, from a young age, whether it's football, rugby, athletics, and just always had that natural spirit, you know, to do well. And I think when you start drilling into, you know, the psychology around sport, which actually then leads into your, you know, your everyday life, it can be quite exciting, but at the same time quite daunting. And then you have to understand it, so you can then make it, you know, just a habit almost every day of your life. So I think it was a big eye-opener. You know, first of all, it was a big eye-opener for me, and then when I did learn it, you know, when I did learn the importance of it, and then I understood it, I could then put it into practice.
And how, like you mentioned the word importance, like how important is it for your sport?
I think it's very important from an elite athlete's perspective in any sport, but certainly in cycling. If you think of the actual art of cycling or pedaling in circles, you know, it does sound very, very easy. However, when you're in a race scenario, for instance, then you have to have a very strong mind to overcome the pain you're feeling in the legs, the pain that you're feeling in your lungs, the pain that you're feeling in your head because you think your head's going to blow up. You know, when you're working at absolute maximum, you have to have that override, you know, that sort of mind over matter override, to understand that you're not going to die when you're working at 201 beats per minute. You just need that strength in your mind to keep telling yourself it's only for a short period, and then you can rest. So a lot of mind over matter, most certainly. I think for me it's probably two things. I think the first thing is knowing your ability and knowing your limit, because obviously in cycling you have to have your limit and know where your limit is, that you can work towards it and then sustain it. And I think secondly is really wanting to succeed. Like most people say, oh yeah, I'd love to become a world champion. But the difference then is the person who says, I want to become a world champion. It's that word want, which is the difference between winners and losers. Well, I think first of all, I actually feel, you know, for those people, if they want to achieve, you know, British Championships, World Championships, Olympic or Paralympic level, that I feel for them, because they could have, you know, very, very good potential. However, there's always going to be compromise. You know, in my case, I gave up my job. I lived in the overdraft. I had no money, and I mean no money, for 2 years. To then get myself into a position where I was on the British cycling radar. To then pursue that dream and want it, and I mean this, really wanted to get to London, and nothing was going to stop me. It was just a case of living with this compromise, that I'd always had money in my pocket ever since I'd worked. You know, I'd always gone out on the weekends and had, you know, lunch and evening meals and restaurants with friends, but all that had to stop, you know, and to ensure that I was in bed by 10 o'clock, 10:30 every night, you know, no chocolate, no alcohol. And there's a massive amount that you have to give up just to get you to that one place in time for you to succeed. So I feel for these people who have to work part-time, full-time, and train almost full-time as well. I think it's paramount, you know, it is absolutely vital that you not only have that plan in place, the long-term plan, but then you have smaller, you know, shorter plans in place. And the most important thing for me, being part of British cycling, is to write down your goals. Is to physically write down your goals, physically write down your plan, and then you break it down. So, for instance, the long-term plan for me was London 2012, which was a 2-year plan. And then you break it down into an annual 12-monthly plan, and then monthly, and then weekly, and then daily.
Yeah.
And if you're really specific in certain sports, you can then break that down to almost hourly goals. What do you want to achieve in the next hour? I think that goes back to compromise. Okay, I'd broken my back. I couldn't rewind the clock. It happened. I had to accept it, and it just depended on how quickly I accepted it before I could then move on and have a life, whatever that life was going to be. And I think, the time I spent in Rookwood, nearly 6 months, gave me lots of time to reflect and think about what I wanted to do with my life. And I think it was only then when I came out of hospital, realised that I could actually ride a bike, even though I couldn't walk, without my walking crutches and stuff. And then realising that the dream of London was a possibility. I didn't know my ability at this point, but I was just learning about myself.
Yeah.
And I think when I realised that through Disability Sport Wales, that there was actually something in this, I then chose not to go back to work, which was my choice, to then literally live on that very thin line, between being completely skint and having money, to get by.
Yeah.
But that was only 5% of my life. The other 95% was to train and train and train, because the Paralympic clock to London, was ticking, and it was going to go ahead whether I was there or not. So I had to ensure that I did everything in my power to get there.
Yeah.
So those thoughts that went through my mind in Rookwood and starting to cycle again, and it was just focusing on what I could do, opposed to what I couldn't do.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.